phenomenon. Theology formulates and refines theological models, address questions about divinity, morality, and human purpose. An example of theology formulating and refining models to address questions about divinity, morality, and human purpose can be found in the development of what is called the theological model of salvation in Christian theology. But theories such as Mary atonement, moral influence theory, and various Christian views, as well as we had Christus Victor. He proposed to explain how salvation is achieved, in what ways and its means to humanity's relationship with the divine. Then we also have substitutionary atonement, and this suggests that Christ's death on the cross was a sacrifice that paid the penalty for humanity's sin, addressing both divine justice and moral implications of sin. We also must remember to look at the moral influence theory, which argues that Christ's sacrifice was meant to demonstrate God's love, inspire moral transformation in humanity. Theology also has an interdisciplinary approach because theology engages with history, philosophy, linguistics, anthropology, and even psychology. So when an individual studies theology, they're not studying because there's Christian theology, there is Jewish theology, there are other forms of theology outside of the Christian faith. And so when persons talk about studying theology, they think that they're only going to study Christian theology, but that's not true. Theology is a body of beliefs and the study of divine being. So whether you are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, your belief structure is built on a theological framework. And while theology does not operate under the same empirical framework as natural sciences, its systematic approach to studying religious thought, scriptures, and doctrines aligns with the structure of the sciences. And so that's why we say that theology is systematic, right? Because it encompasses hermeneutics, exegesis, doctrinal studies, ethics, and comparative religion. From a hermeneutical standpoint, we're looking at the involvement of culture in understanding the religion within the cultural framework, religion within the economic framework, and religion within the academic framework. And in exegesis, we're looking at biblical theology, biblical science, and doctrinal studies. Doctrine is relegated to the faith of the body of study. What we're really, because we said that theology interacts with philosophy, history, literature, anthropology, and science and psychology. And you may ask, well, what is the purpose of theological studies? Well, first of all, the purpose of theological studies is understanding the divine. So let me say, if you get a degree in theology, if you get a degree in comparative religion, you can work as a philosopher, a religious philosopher, for example, in the university. You can be a humanitarian. Our university, which is recognized by the United Nations Volunteers, has that recognition. And so a person getting a degree with us in comparative religion and theology with cultural studies as a minor is already opening themselves up to understanding the purpose and the purpose of theological study, which is understanding the supreme. But we also have to look at ethical and moral development, such as providing frameworks of values, family values, morality, which comes under the legal banner or the legal studies development, and justice, things like peace and human rights. So we cannot look at theology outside of understanding things like interfaith and cultural dialogue, because it encourages respectful engagement with diverse regions and also traditions. One of the things that we have to understand about the study of theology is that it has different branches as well. Some key branches of theology are things like biblical theology. When we say biblical theology, this focuses on the interpretation of sacred scriptures within historical, literary contexts. And this is where we get the use of things like hermeneutics, exegesis to uncover the meanings of theology. But then there's systematic theology. Systematic theology is the way theologians organize theological concepts into a coherent framework. And this includes things like the doctrine of God, salvation, the church, and eschatology, which is the study of the end times. The other thing is that, when we talk about theology, we have to understand it is also the historical theology, which studies the development of theological ideas across time. And this is where we get studying persons like Thomas Aquinas and persons in contemporary society, as well as to explore how religious movements, councils like the Council of Nicaea, for example, Council of Trent, and theologians have